Okay, this morning we do not have a minister with us, but we do have Councilman Johnny Silvas, and he's going to lead us in the prayer.
All right. Let us stand, please. Our gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you again for this day. Father, we thank you for your many blessings. We thank you for the beginning of a new year. I am thankful for the council members that I am proud to serve with, and I pray that you give us wisdom for today's meeting, Father. I pray that you be with each and every family in attendance and all the city out there. So again, thank you for everything you bless us with. Bring us rain, Father. You know we need it. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay, this morning we have, is it Carly? Carly Bucks, who's a 6th grader at TLC Academy. She is the daughter of our city employee, Jamie Bucks, in finance. Hi, Jamie. Please come forward, Carly. We'll start off with the...
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Good job. Thank you, Carly. Thank you for watching here. I want to welcome all of you this morning. It's 9 a.m. Tuesday, January 7th, 2014, to the City Council meeting. I'd like to welcome from District 1, Mr. Fleming, Mr. Self from District 2, Mr. Silvas from 3, and Mr. Vardaman from 4, and Mr. Wardlaw from 5. I'm council member from District 6, your Mayor Pro Tem, and our mayor is out of the city today on business and will be with us next time. This starts off, the council takes public comment on all items in the regular agenda. Public input on a regular agenda item will be taken at its appropriate discussion. Public input on an item not on the agenda or consent agenda may be identified and requested for consideration by the council at this time. The council may request an item to be placed on a future agenda or for consent agenda, to be moved to the regular agenda for public comment. On public hearing items, public input will be received on each item immediately following the council discussion and prior to any action on the item. Each member of the public should make their remarks from the podium and begin by stating their name. Remarks by each citizen will be limited to 3 to 5 minutes unless waived by a council member for all speaking on that matter. No individual will be allowed to speak more than once on any subject until every citizen wishing to comment has done so. Do we have any comments from the public this morning? Please come forward and state your name.
My name is Max Jacobs, and I appreciate y'all's time, Mr. Manager, council members. I would like to just hand this out.
Would you please hand it to the city clerk? Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Jacobs.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Again, I'm Max Jacobs. The drawing that y'all are looking at, you'll see yellow highlighted lots. To the left of that, running north and south, is Bryant Boulevard. Okay, the yellow lots, Mr. Greg Bowman over here and I have under contract. They're all vacant. The orange lots are held by the city of San Angelo. It's my understanding, after checking into it on several occasions, that the city is not interested in selling these lots. What we are respectfully asking of the city is an easement across those lots because we would like to develop those vacant lots that we currently have under contract. If you look carefully, you'll see that most of them are just slivers. Some of them taper down to, the drawing is not very precise, but some of them taper down to, 0. There's even a couple of slivers in there that are too small to show up on a drawing of this size. And that's because the angle of Bryant, when it was platted out, I guess in the 70s, it shaved off some of those lots. So again, the city of San Angelo owns those lots. There doesn't seem to be any real value to them. Yes, ma'am.
No.
Oh, I thought you were fixing to say. I'm sorry. And it seems to me that the highest and best use, not only for those lots, but for that neighborhood in general, is to have some development go in there that can provide jobs and beautify the area. And that is Greg's and my intention. So again, and we can access these lots from the side streets like San Jacinto and Avenue Z and so forth. We certainly can, but it seems somewhat impractical.
Mr. Vardaman, is this your district?
That's mine.
Is Mr. Silva's? Okay, would you care to request that we move this for next council meeting
Yeah,
for
Max,
discussion?
If that's what you're interested in,
Yes, sir.
putting on the agenda,
Yes, sir.
I certainly will follow your lead on that, and we can certainly talk about it and
Okay.
see what we come up with.
Okay, is there something that I need to do then to facilitate that?
If you would work, where is AJ?
Rick.
Okay, Rick or
What were you gonna
AJ, work with Mr. Weiss over here. He'll get with you and set a time to visit with you in the next 2 weeks. Cindy Priest.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
Okay,
That was easy
yes, so far.
so far. Do you
Thank
have an
y'all very
additional
much.
request?
No, ma'am.
Not today.
No.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jacobs.
Thanks
Anyone
again.
else wishing to make public comment? Yes, sir, please come forward and state your name.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Mark Bethune. I'm the Executive Director of the Concho Valley Community Action Agency, and thank you for receiving me today. We are charged with fighting the causes of poverty in the Concho Valley. Our service delivery area would be the 11 counties surrounding Tom Green, and of course including Tom Green, which would be our most populated county. Last year alone, we spent over $1.4 million in direct utility assistance. So by way of introduction, we provide a valuable service to your constituents. I would like to leave my business cards when I step away from the table here in a moment. Next week, a week from today, Tuesday, January 14th, we will host an event in our public library in the community room. The event will highlight the cost of living in our particular area, plus the real wages that it takes for a family to overcome the rate of poverty. And I would like to extend an invitation to you, and I hope that you would all show up. Are there any questions?
What is the date again?
I'm sorry, the date?
Mhm.
It would be a week from today.
Week from
Tuesday,
today.
January 14th.
And the time and location?
It's in the our library and the community room.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
And
it.
I'll leave my cards.
Thank you.
My
if
cards,
you give
my
them
cards
to-
do have my office number and cell number if you ever have any questions.
What time is it?
6 o'clock.
In the evening, I hope. Okay.
PM, please.
This is breakfast.
Anyone else wishing to come forward and make public comment? Okay, do we have any public comments from the council?
Charlotte, I do have one. I did get a phone call from a lady that wanted me to mention that as you're exiting the Target parking lot and you're heading east to make a left, a lot of people make a left. So there's a big bush there that she feels it's something
It is,
terrible
yes.
that's going to happen. So I wanted to throw that out to the staff and see if maybe we can do something to rectify that. But
Yeah.
I know exactly what she's talking about.
I do too, and if Rick, if you'll convey, thank you very much, appreciate it. Any other member? Well, I've got one comment to make. I want to share my New Year's resolution with all of you and the other council members up here today. I make a resolution to try and be more understanding, to live more friendly, more peaceable, And hopefully, if peace and love start at home, it can spread throughout the nation. And that is my sincere wish, to work with council and citizens of the city in that manner, and I hope we can share that. That takes us to consent agenda. And council members, I have some questions on items 2 and 3. If you have no objections, I would like to pull them for discussion. I would need a motion to do so.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda number 1, minus 2 and 3. So just approving number 1.
Ms. Farmer, I do want to give you an update. Staff has pulled number 2, and it will be submitted on the next agenda.
What'd she say?
Staff
That's
has,
pool number 2, so it will be on the next agenda anyways.
Next agenda,
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
There was something I needed to know.
There you go.
Okay, item 2 was pulled from the agenda and will be on next council meeting. So I need a second on item 3.
Second.
Second made by Mr. Vardaman. Any objections? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries. Okay. Item number 3, consideration for authorizing the city manager to execute a memorandum of understanding with the West Texas Retired Senior Volunteer Program, the West Texas RSVP, to provide services, to provide volunteer services for the city of San Angelo. Ms. Marley?
Yes.
I just don't ever recall that we had a memorandum of understanding. Is this something new? Does this commit us to specific items throughout the year?
Excuse me. The former memorandum that we had was with the singular, it was Concho Valley RSVP is who we had our memorandum with, and it's been many, many years ago that we got that, had that. They merged with Big Country RSVP, and so now that we need to redo the MOU. The police department has been using the volunteers from RSVP for a number of years. They use them in making phone calls, in doing some of the pawn shop tickets, some data entry work, and they're very valuable to the police department. And when the request for the MOU came up, the city clerk's office thought that this might be something that human resources would be interested in utilizing citywide when the need for volunteers comes up. And so it doesn't limit us to use the RSVP volunteers, but it does give us another resource for us to pull volunteers when we need them. So the way we had requested this be done is allow the city manager to engage in an MOU with the police department specifically, and then in the future, if we determine that there's a need for volunteers in other departments, we would do an MOU with RSVP with that department.
And we've used them before, even at the senior center where we tried to use them and so forth, and it does give us another avenue for volunteers.
As long as the city manager's happy with it?
I am
All
completely
right.
happy with absolutely.
And it saves us $33,000.
That's correct.
Police
For the police department
Wonderful.
ones, yes.
I need to hear a motion, if someone would so move.
I'll make a motion to approve the item as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made by Mr. Silvas and seconded by Mr. Self to approve as presented. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? There being none, motion carries
Thank you.
6-0. Okay. We are at the point in the agenda that we are on item number 4. First public hearing and consideration of introducing an ordinance authorizing abandonment of the variable width portion of the unimproved public right-of-way of Ben Ficklin Road, extending approximately 400 feet from the southeast corner of South Bryant Boulevard and South Jackson Street, and immediately adjacent to the western border of the Century Park Addition, Track 1, northeastern 22 feet of Lot 14 and Lots 2 through 9 in south central San Angelo.
Charlotte, can I interrupt you just a second? Can we take out an item out of executive session until Dwayne comes back for the next meeting?
Not until we get to executive session.
Okay, in executive
Okay.
session. Okay, thank you.
I believe I'm correct, not until we
That's
get there.
correct.
Okay. Ms. Fauber?
Good morning, thank you.
The request before you this morning required 4 notifications to be sent out in accordance with our city ordinances. We received 1 in favor of the request, 1 in opposition to the request. Those were included in your background report. You might notice that the 1 returned in opposition did have some comments that they possibly could be in favor of the request, depending on what would happen. They had some concerns about this being used as right-of-way to add an additional entrance or lane of some sort. So just to clarify, again, this would, if approved by the council, remove this strip of property from being public right-of-way where we would normally place those types of improvements and convert that to private property. This is an overall view of the city. As you can see, this is in far south central San Angelo, just off of Bryant Boulevard. And here is that strip, again, of variable width, just south of the intersection of South Jackson and South Bryant Boulevard on the east side of South Bryant. This is adjacent to Century Park, which you can see off to the east here. It is currently vacant property, and it is across Bryant Boulevard from an existing hotel. Here is the map denoting the property owners that were notified. Again, property owner number 2, which could go either way depending on the use of the property, is the property owner in red, and the property owner in green, of course, was in favor of the request. Here's just a couple of photographs. This is looking north along this segment of property. Again, as you can see, it's not currently being used for any type of development at this time. And then this is looking the opposite way to the north. I will back up for just a moment and mention, just for historical purposes, that there was an equivalent strip on the opposite side, on the western side of South Bryant Boulevard along this area, that was abandoned by the City Council back in 1983. So this essentially mirrors that request. We have, as a standard with all of these requests, spoken with all of the utility companies, private, as well as the internal staff members that could be affected by the request. They did have some specific conditions, which are outlined in your staff report, that mainly result in maintaining easements and securing easements where utilities currently exist. The Planning Commission did hear this request at their most recent meeting, and they did unanimously recommend approval of the request. Staff also recommends approval of the request, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those at this time.
I believe this is in Mr. Fleming's district. Would you like to lead off with questions?
I think the cutoff's right there by the road. No, I'm in favor of this, and this is actually coming back to what we talked about at the beginning of the meeting with
Max Jacobs.
Max Jacobs. His property is very similar to this, just north of this, like 2 blocks north of this. A lot of the city, when we recut those roads years and years ago, we had little slivers of pieces of property there that almost are not usable to the people back behind them. So I would like to make a motion that we approve this.
I'll second it.
Motion has been made and second. Do we have further discussion from council or questions? Mr. Wardlaw?
Yes, looking at the plat of those lots, it shows that some of them are squeezed down in width or length, however you want to say it. Was that the way it was originally platted, or was that strip we're talking about taken by the city?
Excellent question. The strip was actually taken after the subdivision plat was filed, and you are correct if you note that lots 2 through 9 in their current state are not buildable lots in their current configuration.
Right, and to get that strip, the city would have had to pay the property owners fair market value for that land taken, right?
I'm presuming that that's what was followed.
And so are we going to sell it back to them?
When we pursue an abandonment of this type, we do require that the property owner reimburse the city for the fair market value plus a processing cost for the actual application.
Okay.
And the city took that, not the state, when they improved the freeways? I mean, I'm trying to figure out why the city would take it, and I can see why the state would want a right-of-way for turning or growth or whatever.
Sure.
But
this was a puzzle. We were trying to ascertain whether it truly was something that TxDOT needed to take the lead on, or if it was a city-led issue. And the records from that time were not, left some to be desired. But to be safe and cover our bases, we did work with TxDOT on this and did find that it was in fact a city, it needed to be a city-led abandonment, but we did consult with them to ensure that we would not interfere with any of their future plans, and they also supported the request.
What does the developer plan to do with it?
That we don't know. It's not a requirement for this application. Sometimes they'll share that, but they didn't in this instance.
Is there any comments or questions from anyone from the audience? Is there anyone in the audience who is against this proposal? Are there any further questions from council? If there are none, I have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by saying nay? There being none, it's approved 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item number 5. Consideration of adopting a resolution authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute a temporary, non-exclusive sidewalk use license agreement with Garrick Engel for an outside sidewalk cafe or lounge to include the dispensing, sale, and consumption of alcoholic beverages in compliance with all applicable state law and city ordinance adjacent to the east side of the property located at 217 South Chadbourne Street, and such other instruments as may be necessary or convenient for carrying out such purpose and finding a public purpose and benefit therein. Our presentation is again by Development Services Director A.J. Farber.
Thank you. Typically, we would have these on your consent agenda. This is on the regular agenda today. This is a standard sidewalk use agreement. We've done several of these throughout 2013. This particular agreement most closely mirrors an approval that was given in 2012 for a sidewalk agreement with the House of Phoebe Dubois, which is just a block down the street, very similar in nature. Notifications are not required for this request. It's simply an approval from the City Council. Here's an overall view of the city. Again, this falls within the downtown area, and more specifically, here is the lot on which this property sits, the cross-hatched area denoting the area that would be subject to the agreement that we're asking you to consider today. I'll go through some photographs quickly and show you specifically what we're talking about. You can see in this photograph, for example, the outdoor seating. And so primarily that was the concern of this property owner, was to be able to maintain that outdoor seating. Technically, this is within the public's right-of-way, and the city ordinance states that any use of the public right-of-way for this sort of purpose requires an approval from the City Council. That's essentially the underlying theme of this request. Here's another view of that property. This is looking northward, and then here's another view looking south. Planning staff did work with our legal staff to draft the agreement. It has been approved by the legal department to move forward to this state. And planning staff, we do recommend approving the proposed request and find that it in no way is inconsistent with the activities and the uses that you see throughout the downtown area. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Well, I do have one.
Yes.
I know 2012 was a while ago since we started this, but I definitely recall making the statement that I was afraid we were opening a can of worms. You allow one, you have to allow all of them. But my biggest complaint was the sale of alcohol outside on the sidewalk within the public. I'd like to hear from our newer council members as to how they feel about the sale, restricting the sale to purpose inside only or outside. And Mr. Silvas, this is your district.
AJ, the only question I have is, we allowed Fifi to do hers. Have there been any issues or concerns at that location?
Not that I'm aware of, but if there were, I would probably not be the person to
Right.
hear those. They'd probably go through our police
Rick,
department.
have you heard anything?
No, maybe a police department issue.
Is there anyone from-
And honestly, I have no problem with it as long as they make it aesthetically pleasing, kind of like, Fifi's got a nice little setup there. So, I mean, we'd have to prohibit the sale of alcohol down there if we didn't want it outside, and it happens. So, I mean, I'm certainly not against the idea as long as it looks, they make it look nice and pleasing to the eye, and just if there have been no concerns, then that would have been my one drawback if Fifi or if we had heard of some crazy ongoings out there.
Right.
Other than that, I'm okay with it.
Do we have anyone from the PD here this morning that might have information as to Any problems? I guess not. Okay. I remember that our discussion when we first allowed this, that, of course, sales took place inside, and I believe, most consumers would be restricted to carrying wine back out to the sidewalk, and I can't remember why that was. Those are just my concerns, and I certainly am not trying to be argumentative here, but I do want to make sure that we discuss this and that we understand what we're allowing to occur on the sidewalks, which is a public area. Mr. Fleming, do you have any?
The one thing I'm worried about on this, and I don't mind so much being able to purchase alcohol out there, but I think the main reason why they're asking for this is to allow smokers to be out there in the right of way, because they can't be inside the building. And so I think that I would be more in favor of it if we said apply the same rules that are inside the building to the outside there.
I know it's
That's
certainly for a non-smoker to have to walk through that veil, but smokers have rights as well.
They do.
Any other council member? Mr. Vardaman?
My only thing is, like Johnny was talking about, is the appearance of it. And as I read the ordinance, there's nothing that has anything, and I guess it would be hard to put into writing, and, as far as appearance goes. Hopefully, as a business owner, of course, that they would want to, really make it look nice in front of their business, because that's the first thing that they see. But I have the same concern as John.
I don't believe that the property owner has indicated that they will be making any changes to the area. Their move in doing this was simply to come into accordance with the ordinance. And so I believe that and I don't think that he's in attendance, but I don't think that they're planning on changing the appearance other than what it is now. But you're correct, it is somewhat difficult to write into the agreement.
Mm-hmm.
But do keep in mind that the agreement is revocable by the city. And since it's your property, essentially speaking on behalf of the city, so you do have that option to consider. And I shouldn't get into law, but that's
So
my
if things
simple
get out of hand
understanding.
downtown, the council can revoke everything that's out?
It's temporary.
Okay. Is there any more discussion on this subject?
Can you go back to that picture that shows the sidewalk view? Right there.
Mhm.
It's kind of narrow right there where that fire hydrant is.
There is a requirement for ADA accessibility,
Uh-huh.
and so in doing this request, we had to verify that that requirement was met.
Okay.
It is met. However, you do have the ability to alter the agreement for the dimensions if you'd like to do so.
Isn't that the same dimensions that Fifi's using at her location?
That is,
In terms of extending into the sidewalk, yes. In terms of the width, no, it's actually narrower because the building's narrower.
Okay. Because she's further down north.
Correct.
Yeah.
boy, that doesn't
Well-
look wide enough for a wheelchair to get by.
It doesn't look
but-
very wide. But I think it's kind of hard for us to say that we've already given this to one and not give it to the next one. I make a motion that we accept this as it is.
I'll second that.
Have a motion to accept by Mr. Fleming, a second by Mr. Silvas. There being no further discussion,
Public.
all those in favor, please indicate.
Public comments.
I did.
Did you public?
I asked for
Yeah.
any other conversation.
Oh, okay.
Yes, ma'am. If you have public comment, please come to the mic. State your name.
My name is Mary. I'm with Disability Connections, and I do have a concern based on the sidewalk because it's not accessible to people on wheelchairs. So unless they do something with the sidewalk, I just feel like that area downtown needs to be accessible to all.
So noted. Thank you, ma'am. Any other public comment on this subject?
Charlotte, the more I look at that picture, isn't the fire hydrant a little further north of the cones? I don't know what the cones are covering. Maybe they're going to plant trees there. I can't really tell.
This is within the area of the streetscape project.
Right.
Which is currently still under construction, and so the cones are there for that particular project. It does appear that the hydrant is just slightly pushed
North.
out closer to the street,
Right.
but not by much.
What is gonna go in that the streetscape area though? Because if something goes in there, that makes it way too narrow.
Correct, and we may need to, like I say, we typically check for compliance, but compliance doesn't always mean practicality.
Right.
So we can certainly re-examine that. I know the original plan for that streetscape project was to have trees inserted in those areas. We don't know that that's going to actually happen with this project. It may be replaced with something else.
Those are designated areas for decorative value.
Right.
As we have funds available or a all drought level. Is that correct, Michael? I'm trying to remember the streetscape plan, and it is,
We're holding off on the plantings because of our water situation.
so it is very possible that, something will be installed, even if it's rock.
That's correct.
But rock would be no good for a wheelchair. I mean, you could.
No.
Right.
But who's to say that the entrance that they have there now, they could easily move it to the north side or the south side, and it would eliminate them having to even deal with that barrier out there. So
But there still has to be access for wheelchair accessibility between I take the blue little divider and the
Right there.
right there going along the street, right? But that, we'll verify that?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know.
I can assure y'all, from someone who spent the first 6 months of this year wheelchair and needing to find access, we're hurting in our city for accessibility that meets with wheelchairs, walkers, and stuff.
From a park perspective, as best I know, decomposed granite is an acceptable surface, accessible surface. So as long as that is filled, and you can go over the edge and there's not this huge drop off, you're okay with that.
Is there any further discussion on this subject?
Now I almost want to withdraw my motion until we know exactly what is going to be in there, because we want to make sure that are we going to put that in there, or? I think we almost have to wait until we have an answer on this. I'm withdrawing my motion on this. I think we
Mr.
need
Fleming has withdrawn his motion. Mr. Silvas, your second.
we'll withdraw it, and I guess we can bring it back for further discussion.
Make a recommendation that this item be brought back to council for discussion when we know more about the streetscape and what will be going in that little garden area to make sure that it accommodates handicapped people.
And AJ, maybe next time we can get the owner here present, if,
We always ask.
I know,
We can't require.
I would ask that.
Okay.
I think it's only fair that we probably will do this, but we need to have the answers to those questions to make sure. Because if we put a tree or something there eventually, I mean, there's for sure not enough room there. Do you have something,
Carl
Carl?
knows something.
Mr. White?
I do know something.
But you're not telling what it is.
I'm going to tell you now.
He knows one
The
thing.
group Art in Uncommon Places has submitted a proposal to the city, and we're taking that to the Public Art Commission at the meeting this coming Thursday for some art to be placed in those wells. The art that's being proposed is chaps, like leather chaps, but these would be metal chaps about the height that you could step into. So it would be very unique and to San Angelo. The chaps could be sponsored by ranching families. So I do know that is being proposed.
Okay, be a good idea that we discuss after the Art Commission meets. Okay, it has been pulled from the agenda for discussion at a later date. Item number 6, discussion concerning the Riverfest event and consideration of approving the event as an annual one sponsored and coordinated by the City of San Angelo Parks and Recreation Department. Presentation is by Parks and Recreation Director Carl White.
Good morning.
So this is what you know.
Yes, ma'am.
More of what he knows.
Go ahead.
Wanted to visit with you briefly this morning about the Riverfest. We had the Riverfest back in October 18th and 19th. We wanted to talk with you and get your direction as to whether you would like to see this happen as an annual event. And just starting out, I'd like to say that Riverfest was mostly a success, and I'll explain why I say mostly. The objectives starting out were to celebrate the completion of the improvements along the river, basically from Concho Avenue up to First Street below the high school, with all the trail work that had been done, the bank stabilization, and all the improvements that had been added to the parks along that stretch. And as well, we wanted to combine with that the celebration, the 100th anniversary celebration of Santa Fe Park. Santa Fe Park is basically all that park property along the river below Central High School all the way to the property where the YMCA sits. So it was kind of combined with that. The goals of the event were to have an attendance of about 8,000 to 10,000 people. Of course, it was a new event. We really had no idea how many people would, in fact, show up. We wanted to break even financially or make some money if the event was to continue. We did want to have some beneficial economic impact, and we really had no idea what that might be. And then starting out, we really wanted to have an event that didn't really cost the public much. We wanted to have most of the activities that were free to the public. It was a collaborative effort. Got 2 slides that show all the different groups that worked together on this event. Of course, it was led by the city of San Angelo, but we had some key partners, some of who are here in attendance at the meeting today. And this is the second slide that shows our partners. And I want to make a clarification. On Angelo State University students, specifically, it was the YAS group, Youth Achieving Through Service and Sports, with Mr. Sanford Mouton, who's here as well today. Of course, with any event, we had some challenges. And then one of them was weather. As we noticed with our favorite event, Christmas at Old Fort Concho, the weather can really impact an event. It did impact our event as well, primarily Friday night, the concert that we had Friday night. But it was the weather didn't really have a bad impact on Saturday, except for Saturday night. It was a little chilly, so that may have impacted the number of people who came out for the concert Saturday night. The biggest challenge I think we had was that the carnival that we had lined up had canceled on us less than 2 weeks before the event. They had claimed that they had staffing issues, equipment issues, and were running in the red, and they wouldn't be able to come to our event. So we had to scramble to execute our contingency plan B, which was to have a kids court in the area where the carnival was supposed to be. And that ended up working out well. But it did impact us in that we actually had an expense to create the kids court, and we lost revenue we expected from the carnival. The event, because we wanted to highlight what we had done along the river, that long stretch, it created an event that was really spread out from end to end. So logistically, that was hard to kind of to run. And we had limited staffing because primarily we don't have staff to host large events like this. And then we also had some tournaments that we had to help run that weekend. And then the funding, we relied heavily on the sponsorships that we got, as well as donations and the revenues that we made. We got some really good sponsorship and donations, totaling about $26,000, but we had to really kind of work hard to get that money. And then there were a few competing events, primarily the football game Friday night, which probably kept some people coming to the concert Friday night. There were some definite major pluses to this event. Most of the activities were free. We brought several organizations to work together, which was a plus. We got to highlight the improvements that we did along the river. We got lots of good feedback through our social media, through phone calls, through just people in passing. There seems to be a lot of good interest for having this event. We got a good level of sponsorships and donations and financial support outside of the city. And in the end, we did raise some money for some charitable work, specifically $1,500 for the Wounded Warrior Project. That's primarily with the washer pitching tournament, and then more than $12,000 to help replant trees along the river. And that mostly that came from the Color Up Run. As people registered for that, money went to that charity. In the end, did we meet our goals? We came pretty close. The attendance was about 7,000 by our estimates. Revenue less expenses, we lost money. In the end, a little less than $7,500 was our loss. And our economic impact that we estimate was about $400,000. And we wanted folks to have fun, and for the most part, people did. Just a few quick slides showing from the event. There's no people in this picture, but it shows the first event that was part of our overall Riverfest, which is the Richard Salmon Sculpture Garden competition. This year's, the ones that won got to be placed and revealed this year. That was the first event as part of the Riverfest. The concert Friday night, the Texas Tornadoes. And speaking about the weather, we started that concert Friday night. We had, I think, about 200 people that were there. We made a decision about 5 o'clock whether we were going to keep that concert there at the river stage or move it to the stables at the fort. We made the decision at 5 o'clock to keep it there. About 5:40, this small electrical storm popped up west of us and made a beeline straight for us and hit us about 8 o'clock. So we told folks we had to stop for a while because it was an electrical storm. We started back up at 10 o'clock, and we ended up having about 50 people who stayed around. So we lost some revenue on that because we didn't have the concession sales. The biggest, most popular piece of the Riverfest was the Color Up Run. We had more than 2,300 folks participate in that run. A total of about 2,600 people participated in that piece of that event overall. And it really highlighted what we've done along the river. Lots of people who came from out of town got to see what we've done. And most people have the best memories of Riverfest from the Color Up Run. The Girl Scouts, they really were pleased with how it worked out, adding them to the Riverfest. They actually got more folks to attend their event, and it worked out well. The Bosque, with the washer pitching area is, and the other games, that was one of the most crowded areas, as you can see by this picture, from that washer pitching tournament. It was very well attended. And it was neat to highlight all the other improvements we made in that area. This here is the chessboard with the big chess pieces, the washer pitching, the bocce ball, and the paddle boats. We had hoped to get 4 paddle boats from Concho Cruises. We borrowed those. We ended up getting 3, and one of them didn't work, so we had 2. And throughout the day, we had folks waiting in line to ride paddle boats. So that really highlighted that folks really want to have paddle boats on the river. This shows another picture of the Bosque, how crowded it was, and smiles on people's faces. We got to highlight some of the improvements we did, like the musical chimes underneath Chadron Bridge. Another piece that worked really well is working with Joseph Ashmore with the Soundstage and Songwriters Association. The little stage that's underneath the Chadron Bridge is set up for little concerts like this, and that worked out a lot better than we had expected it to work out. I had feared that there would be, the sound of the traffic on the bridge would make it difficult to hear, but it didn't. It works out really well. And this is a slide showing the ASU students who helped with the event. We had hoped starting out to have a skateboard competition at the skate park, and we couldn't get a group to really pick that piece up. So in the end, we just had some skaters show their skills at the skate park. And then this shows the kids' court with the pony rides, the petting zoo, and the inflatables as part of the kids' court. The balloon, at the request of the folks who operate the balloon, they didn't want to advertise that the balloon was going to be offered because it really depended on the weather whether they could show up or not. So we didn't advertise that. So we announced it during the event, and so a lot of people didn't hear about it, and they weren't able to show up to see it. And then we ended with a ticketed concert at the River Stage with Little Texas and Casey James, and it worked out okay, but the attendance wasn't what we expected, and I do believe the promoter did lose money on that concert. It was a little chilly that night. Okay, the most popular activities: the Color Up Run, the Kids Court at the Neffs area, the Washer Pitching Tournament, the International Water Lily Collection Tours. We kept track of how many people came down to see the water lily collection during the event, and it was about 3 times as many as we normally get during Lily Fest every year. The other things we'd like to keep as part of Riverfest, if we were to do it again, are the Girl Scout activities, the paddle boats. And then we tried to do a cardboard boat regatta, but it really did not work out well. What we need to do is to find a group or an individual who will take that piece and help coordinate it and get registrations beforehand. The golf tournament worked out okay, but it wasn't quite as many people who participated in it as we had hoped. And then I talked about the skate demonstrations. The least popular activities were the balloon glow and the Kids Kingdom activities. We had kicked off the event at Kids Kingdom because that's part of Santa Fe Park. We wanted to tie Santa Fe Park in with that, but it was really disconnected from where most of the people were, so it was difficult for folks to make a connection that something was going on there. So it was not well attended. Lessons learned, if we're to do it again, we'd tighten up the area, consolidate the area for the event, better define sponsorship levels, improve the layout of the concessions and kids' court area, and make a better link between event partners. We were well coordinated, but during the event, we found out that, of course, to the public, it didn't really matter whose little piece was part of our event. For instance, at the Eco Fair, if people went to the Eco Fair to find out what was going with the event overall, there was not information there. The event brochures were not there. So we needed to better coordinate that. If we do it again, consider adding performers, and I'm thinking about the ones that will show up and just mingle with the crowd and kind of entertain the crowd if they're waiting in line and things like that. And then broaden the range of musical performers, specifically bringing in Tejano groups or Norteño groups to add to the musical offerings. Consider adding a barbecue or cornbread and bean cook-off. Consider adding arts and crafts, and then considering moving the date of the event. We did have a meeting with the committee after the event, and we did talk about moving the event if we were to do the event again. And the consensus was to move it to the same date as Lily Fest, which would be the 20th of September. We had the event the middle of October this year because it was really at the end of when the project was completing. It makes more sense maybe to have the event in September. It's not, you don't have the chance of it being as cool as it was when we had it. And we could really build on each other, have a Lily Fest and River Fest at the same time. So the bottom line question is, should this become an annual event? And if so, should the Parks and Recreation Department coordinate it? And if there is to be any city support, financial support, should we ask for that through the budget process?
Well, I have to ask this question right up. You're asking us to approve something on an annual basis that we took a $7,500 loss on. And I have to ask, where do you plan to get the $7,500 to make up this loss, and what kind of provisions would you build in next year so that the city is not out the expense? That is my question.
Well, we'd hope to get that through sponsorships, and it's possible that we could. And it's likely that we could raise more revenue than we did this year with some of the lessons that we learned from this past event. But I might want to ask for some money to help support the event with some of the just basic items like the porta potties and the dumpsters. It does bring folks from out of town to come visit San Angelo, so it does have some economic impact.
Carl, I might add to that, just to refresh council's memory, before the event, Carl came to council and talked about the event, and the committee had requested some assistance with funding. And the council's answer at that point was, we're probably supportive about that, but let's just see where you land with your sponsorships and what you bring in. And so this is a summary bringing back to y'all. So that's kind of where we landed.
Do you have any questions from my right over here? Mr. Wardlaw?
Yes, Carl, who made up the difference in the money that was spent and what was brought in?
Right now, we have a liability of about $7,500.
Who is we?
The city.
We did not authorize any payment for this in the budget.
The council did authorize setting up accounts where we bring in revenue and then expend that revenue out of an expense account.
Mm-hmm. And that
was my understanding as to what our intent was.
No.
And whether I'm right or wrong, I'm not for financing this again this year. And I'll just say that and get on record.
At the end of the day, if council chooses not, and as we brought it forward, the direction given was what I stated a while ago. Let's see where we land, come back and tell us. But at the end of the day, Carl, in their budget, were willing to try and burden that if necessary. He doesn't have an excessive budget in recreation or parks, but that's where the $7,500 will come from. They'll have to make that within their budget if council chooses not to do anything else.
Mr.
Correct.
Hardeman, do you have any questions?
I don't think I have a question. I have a comment. I think I agree with Winky on that we had not really put any money out there for this. I think the Riverfest is fine, but I think we, as I remember it, said at that time that it needs to stand on its own, and I still believe in that.
Mr. Fleming?
That's exactly what we said in that meeting. I mean, I thought it was very, very plain, and I had brought that up. I love the Riverfest. I think we should probably do it again, but I don't think us as a city need to be doing this. My understanding, and I think Winky is right on this, I thought we said no money. And the city is paying $7,500 out there, whether it comes out of his budget or it comes out of the general budget, we're going to pay for this. I am not for approving this to do it again unless we get sponsors on board that are going to sponsor the full amount and take on the burden for this. This needs to be something that the general public needs to pick up. We're clearly not in the business of promoting concerts if we end up with 50 people at the end of a concert. So it's not something I don't think we should be paying for.
Mr. Self?
Well, I tend to agree with everyone else, but I do think there's, if we're bringing in economic impact, I think we should look at the possibility of some help. I think it should be minor. I think you're close enough that you can find a way to make it work in the future, without a doubt. I thought we had looked at it with the excess, whatever that money was called from the
Hotel
yeah.
occupancy tax.
I thought that's where we had looked at it originally.
Is that where the $7,500 is coming from?
No. At the meeting, that was the discussion. The committee requested, and we're pulling the minutes, but the committee requested some funding from council. Council said, we're really not willing to stomach that right now. We talked about hot dollars, and that's where we said, let's see where you land and what you raise with sponsorships and so forth and where you land. So yes, hot dollars were the dollars, but at the end of the day, in this scenario, Carl was willing to put that burden upon his department if necessary, depending where we land, which is where we are right now. Y'all's decision is whether you want to do anything with that this year, let him stomach it, and whether you want to risk any dollars, giving him guidance for next year, whether it's hot money or budgeted dollars.
Mr. Silvas?
At the end of the day, I see that $400,000 impact that it brought to the city. I don't know how you measured that, but if that's what it did, so be it. $7,500 doesn't bother me at all. I participated in the golf tournament, and I saw those 2,500 runners running around us, heckling us and giving us a hard time. And there were smiles on their faces. There was, those folks went out there and had a good time. I was part of the attendance at the stadium that Friday night. That stadium was packed, so you guys did miss out on that. So moving it to September, I think it's a fantastic idea. But I could just see that even the impact that we lost, even from that full stadium out there. Thousands of people were out there. This is an event. I remember the days of Fiesta del Concho, and man, it was the best of times. And then I think the junior league tried it, and it took off there for a while, and it lost. And I think we're at a time where we're trying to bring some activity back to our city, beautiful little city, trying to attract more attention, more tourists. I think we need to. This is an investment for that money that could possibly come our way. So you have my full support. I don't know where the money's going to come from. If it's a $7,500 loss. I don't see it. I see a $400,000 gain. That's what I'm looking at. So maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but I am in full support of whatever activities that you want to try again. If you don't get the votes, well, you've got my vote, and that's all I can say is, I think it was a fantastic event, and you talked about the smiles on people's faces. Our taxpayers want more activities like that, And if this is, again, if we're planting the seed with this, let's move with it. I'm just one vote, and that's all I can say.
Well, I would like to add this. My daughter, granddaughters, all their friends ran in your color run and had an absolute blast. I was shocked when I saw their blue and pink faces on television and in the newspaper. It's like, wow, because I didn't know they were attending. But they enjoyed it. They had a blast. But in your revenues and your expenses, and I realize this was a first-time event, so there were lots of learning curves in here. When I saw all the people with the different T-shirts that said Riverfest, I mean, I'm wondering who paid for those, or did we sell them, or, it just says revenues $480. Gee, you must have sold them for a penny a piece, because I swear I've seen 1,000 of them. I don't know how that worked, but the revenue in it, I don't see as it being all of the revenue that maybe should have been there. In looking at the $10,000 donations, it says Chamber to DSA, Downtown San Angelo Association. I don't understand the comment, Chamber to. Did the Chamber cut a $10,000 check to the Downtown Association?
That's correct.
And did they give that back to the city of San Angelo, or?
No, we did. The city didn't go into the city's account. That money went to the Chamber to downtown to pay for the Friday night concert.
But we paid for the Friday night concert.
The downtown actually did.
Okay.
The money went from the Chamber to downtown. The budget I submitted showed an overall budget. It didn't necessarily show the budget from the accounts. It showed everything for the entire event. Revenues that came in for the event, and then expenditures for the event.
Well, I'm confused.
Basically, the money for the Friday night concert was in and out. The $10,000 went from the Chamber to downtown, then straight to the concert for Friday night. The city didn't touch that money.
And the $2,500, the San Angelo?
That portion went to pay for the sound and light for Friday night's concert.
But that went to the Downtown Association, and they paid
That's
the
correct.
vendors for that directly out of, okay. So to me, the numbers are a little off here. My next question is, I noticed there was, did I see 12? The amount that was raised for trees to replant along the river, $12,140 was raised for tree planting?
That's correct.
Okay, if you put that $12,140 up there, then you actually have $3,000 left approximately, or $4,000 to
$5,000 at least.
in the profit side. Is that correct?
It's not. Correct.
In
but
short, that's correct.
Correct, if you look at it from a whole picture. But as I understand it, when the Color Up Run was done through who organized that, the
Race, Texas.
yeah, the way they did it was, we're going to provide revenue from this to a charitable event, a charitable cause, and their cause was to replant trees. So we can't take that money and make it good, but yes, it makes it as
I
a
understand
whole
there, but
good.
I understand that totally, and I would
Yes.
definitely want the 12,000 set aside to replant trees that we have lost during the drought. That's great and that's wonderful, but it is the overall picture of the monies that actually, and it comes out in the black, because we're not going to be planting any trees anytime soon. We're not going to spend the money for anything but that, but the overall picture is better than it looks, is the reason I wanted to point it out.
There you go.
I support the event, but I think I was the one that threw a wrench in things to begin with, that you had to fund it through sponsorships. I truly believe that a more valiant effort could be done to find sponsors on a 2-3 year contract type basis that they would want their names affiliated with. And I would like to see you between now and say June of this year talk to some larger companies out there for some substantial sponsorships for this program, and then bring it back to us with what you feel like that you can do sponsorship-wise, because Mr. Silvas is right, it does put heads in beds, and any losses should, in my opinion, come out of the motel dollars. And that's my opinion, and since I can't make any motions, I've just made a suggestion that this come back to us in June with dedicated sponsorships to see what we can do. I can only hope that one of the other council members might want to put that in a form of a motion for today.
Carl, do you want us to take action on this today?
Yes, sir. Because if we are going to coordinate the event, we need to know sooner so we can start doing that coordination.
Okay, I move that we approve the event for 2014 with no financial support from the city of San Angelo, just like we tried to do last year.
Second.
Motion has been made by Mr. Worklaw and a second by Mr. Vardaman. Any other comments or discussion from council?
Yes. Okay, a couple of things. One, have we actually physically gotten a check for $12,140?
Yes, sir.
Where is that posted at?
It's in a city account.
In contributions in
It's
the
a
parts,
de-
there's a,
I can go and look at it.
Yes, sir. It's a designated revenue and expenditure account, one of the 601 accounts.
So the Color Run raised all that money. So all that money was raised from the Color Run, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think that we need to do this, but we need to do, the concert lost all the money. That's where you lost all the money, and the chamber actually saved you on, paying for the bands. I like Winky's motion here, but we did the same motion last time. We did this. We said no expenses by the city, and now you're coming back to, I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but I was arguing, I was adamant on this deal that the city does not pay for this. We need to get sponsors, businesses to pay for this and help out the city. We're not in the business of running concerts and doing those things. That Color Run evidently has a very good organization. They advertise really well, and they got a lot of runners in there. We need businesses and corporations to step up to the plate and do this.
I agree with you, Mr. Fleming. I truly do. That's the reason if we set a time in June to come back before they do this in September, they should have their sponsor money committed, and if we can see $40,000 in sponsorship, I will be very comfortable to go with it.
Is he comfortable with doing that in June, though? I think he's saying it needs to be done now.
We just need to be given the green light to coordinate.
Start the legwork.
The direction, if they can't raise the money by June when they come to us, then we don't have it.
But they told us last time, Charlotte, that they would do that.
The other thing that council needs to...
They said last time, you guys will not have to pay for this. We are paying $7,500.
They were very confident that they could raise the money, and their valiant efforts for a first-time trial are that valiant, but they fell short.
I want to point out that with any event, and I feel very uncomfortable with this, any event we do, Christmas at Old Fort Concho is a prime example. We are subject to what the weather does, someone canceling on us, any event you do. So the Christmas event at Fort Concho wins sometimes and it loses sometimes, and the fund fluctuates depending on that. I'm very uncomfortable. I think council either needs to say, yes, we want to do this event, because to be honest, we don't have a lot of staff. I don't have staff to go out and raise funds. We don't have dedicated staff to coordinate those things. So those are things they're doing above and beyond. In this last event, they really went above and beyond. They took a lot of personal time. And so, we can do our best, but at the end of the day, it comes down to, is this an event that San Angelo wants to have in-house? Or if it's not that important to us, then no. But I don't feel comfortable, even if Carl comes back with $40,000 worth of sponsorships, yes, that's probably going to cover it. But in the event that someone pulls at the last minute, the concert guy doesn't show up, you run those things when you promote events. And so we've got to either be willing to take a certain amount of exposure or not.
But if you have those sponsorships and you have $40,000, you're covered.
But
we don't have to pay anything.
True, but let's say that happens. If the event doesn't happen and you're the sponsor of the concert and it didn't happen, you're probably not going to be very happy about that. So, there's all sorts of scenarios that run into that play when you try to put on large events. So, take that into consideration as you look at what you want to do.
Any
Don't
other-
burden them with something that they can't.
I'm just getting to
afford.
the point of, I see cities nationwide going in default on we're overspending on things, and I love this. I think this is a great event. I think we should do it, but I'm not so sure that us as the city should be doing this. That's my whole argument is I don't think we should be doing it. I think someone else should be
I don't
doing it.
disagree, and I think Carl's proposal, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, when he brought it before, was a potential location for that were hotel motel dollars that were to promote events, and that's what they're used for putting heads in beds, and whether this qualified as one of those events or not. I don't think typically he was suggesting using general fund dollars.
Well, does it qualify as using those?
As best I would say, yes.
Well, can we get a commitment from them that they will pick up that and not?
You allocate those dollars.
Yes,
You're
we
in
do.
charge of
We
those.
can do that.
Well, I'd be more I'd approve this if we could just go ahead and say that and it comes out of those dollars. I think it would be a lot easier. But I still think Charlotte is right where we need to line up. I would like to see how many sponsors we have months out and see what kind of impact we're going to have. Is this going to be a bad deal where we just need to say early on, we're not doing it?
Charlotte?
Just a moment. Mr. Silvas has next comment.
No, Carl, I was just going to mention that the $12,000 for the tree planting, is that set in stone that it has to go to the trees?
Yes, sir. It's in a designated
Okay.
account.
Then my second comment, and Rodney beat me to it, if we take that $400,000 impact that we had for the heads and beds, if you want to call it, minus that $7,500, we still had a $390,000 economic impact. So I'm looking at the hot dollars out there that help us, move forward with this. So if that's something, one area we can tap into, then I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Mr. Bardovan?
Well, one of the things I think we need to keep in mind as far as budgets go, we still need a roof on the Coliseum. We've been talking about hot money for that. That dollar only goes so far, and if our staff doesn't have the personnel to do something, they don't need to bring it to us. I mean, to me, that's just common sense. Either you can do it or you can't. Like I said, the theory of the Riverfest, I think, is great, but by the same token, if we don't have the staff, if we don't have the money, if we have to rob Peter to pay Paul, we don't need to do it.
Is there any other council comment at this time?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Wardlaw?
I think my motion is still relevant, and I wholeheartedly agree with Mr. Fleming. It was made real clear, and I can remember almost his exact words emphasizing that the city was not going to dip into our budget to pay for this, and it should have been made clear to everybody on the staff. And maybe there's a misunderstanding, but this was not what we authorized. And I think my motion to just go ahead, and if they want to do this and they can raise the money and they've got the time, that's fine. If they don't, they can pull off. But Carl says he needs an answer today, and that's why I think my motion is still germane, and I'm not going to withdraw it at this time.
Okay. Now it's time for the public out there to make comment on this matter. Please come forward and state your name.
Downtown San Angelo Executive Director Del Velasquez. Downtown San Angelo is an integral part of some of the planning around Riverfest. As you've already noted, we raised the money to pay for the Friday night concert, and I've brought this up several times to you before, and I was very grateful to the chamber to stepping up and giving us the $10,000 sponsorship for the concert. The other $2,400 or $2,500 that we received was from the San Angelo Cultural Affairs Council. We applied for, when I say we, Downtown San Angelo applied for a grant request to help support that initiative. So basically, Downtown San Angelo, in essence, raised the funds for the concert. We also sponsored the Color Up Run. And we hosted the registration pickup, and I don't know if any of you saw the news stories that came out of that, but you would have seen a line of people from our office all the way down almost to Chadburn, almost more than about half a block or longer of people waiting, coming in over a period of 3 days. The Color Up Run, and as we've already clearly stated, that was the most successful event of the Riverfest. as it brought in the $12,000 for the tree planting, but it also brought in about 22, we're understanding 22% of the people that registered were from out of San Angelo. So again, I don't know how you translate that into economic impact, but I'm sure it was significant enough into the 400,000 that you're talking about, Johnny, or that you asked about as to how you measure that. I also want to remind you that the city spent $13 million to promote or develop the river for the purposes of not only our citizens to enjoy the trails and everything that goes into that, but also to be a tourist attraction to the city. Downtown San Angelo is very pleased with the action that has taken place, the projects that have been developed, the River Fest. And so when you talk about a $7,500 deficit, which can be made up through hot tax money, which is what that really is for, which you have the authority to do that, I would encourage you to look at that again and rethink about how we're marketing, developing our city. Well, I won't go there. But anyway, I just want to make sure that you understand downtown San Angelo, and we're fully committed. We're fully committed to help raise money. I also want to make another point. The media, the newspaper, the television station, the radio stations all gave us more than free advertising to promote a lot of this. Now, they did get some advertising dollars from the promoters from the concerts, not the Friday night concert, but the Saturday night concert. That promoter ended up taking a loss, I understand. But the media was very helpful in providing free advertising to help promote this. It's a first-year event. I want to remind you of that again. Any first-year event, you never know how it's going to end up. It's a gamble. It's a risk. And we were able to take that risk. And for the most part, I believe we were successful. And so I just want to encourage you to think about those things as you go through your process of evaluating how you want to vote on this. But I would encourage you to continue to do this. I think from a long-term perspective, the city of San Angelo and the citizens will profit from it. Any questions?
Mr. Fleming has a question for you, Mr. Velasquez.
Is there any way that we can get the Color Up Run to donate to the River Fest organization? Can we, not to the trees, but to this actual event this next time?
Yes, sir. We already talked to them about that, and that is a possibility.
So we can set that up?
Yes, sir.
I mean, that would make me a lot happier. That's $12,000 we would have been, well, without getting, the chamber to come in and help us out a lot. And I hope the chamber does help us out again on this to try to help continue this event. But if we could get that to happen, and the charity is not that I'm against trees or anything, but I want this to pay for itself.
We can't move the money from this past event.
No, I understand. I understand
the next
that.
year event, we already talked to them about that, and we could set up the festival as the recipient of those donations.
Okay, that's a good deal.
Do we have any other questions for Mr. Velasquez from the council? Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. Is there any other public comment on this matter? Good morning, Mr. C. Please state your name.
Good morning, council, mayor, pro tem, and other council people and council lady. My name is Jerry C., and I'm a member of WTOS. And I wouldn't say anything, but this falls right into what we're about. WTOS is about our communities and about our city in general, and improving and cleaning up, improving our city. Now, as was stated before, you have this park down here. You just finished it. This was the first Riverfest. There's a lot of things in plans that don't always go right. Now, if it were a perfect world, it would have, and you wouldn't be having this conversation. Somebody would be trying to get the edge on how much money they're going to get, So now, I believe if the carnival hadn't backed out, this would have been a very good success. It would have a large amount of money that would be brought into the city. But even though there was a failure on one part, we gained a lot for the advertisement of this city. You're building hotels, the oil's here, but we want San Angelo to be a place of destination instead of just a stopover. This is a very good way to advertise the city and to give the citizens of the city somewhere to go and bring their friends and invite their friends and family from out of town and places to go. It would be a good investment if the city invested, but I believe that the problem is solved as to how much money it's going to take to do whatever it is. Now, Carl's done a wonderful job, and that's a beautiful place down there. That should be an advertising and focal point for this city. And it would be in our best interest if we rethought this. And even if you did put a few dollars into it, your return is going to be 2 or 3 or 4 times as much once these bugs are ironed out. This was his first trip. I thank you, and please consider that.
Thank you, Mr. C. Any other comment from the public on this subject? Please come forward and state your name. Hold your comments to 3 to 5 minutes, please.
Sure. Good morning. How you doing? I'm Sanford Mouton. I'm a graduate student over at ASU. I'm from Houston, Texas, and I'm the executive director of YAS, Youth Achieving Through Service and Sports. We joined Carl late in the planning for this Riverfest, and we were able to get volunteers. I think that you guys should vote this through today, approve it. Like I said, I'm from Houston. I'm used to seeing festivals of this nature within our city, and I know what it does to the community. The children enjoy it, the youth enjoy it, the community thrives from it, and from my viewpoint, the San Angelo community is a thriving community. I'm very excited to be here, and I'm very excited to just work with Carl and make things happen down here in a positive direction for the youth, for the community, for the image, everything as a whole. They lost $7,500 this year. Next year, and all of the things that we plan and hope to add to the city, I think we'll make that up in those with the future projects, as well as the volunteers that I plan to have help make up and the deficits that personnel couldn't cover. So, like I said, I think you guys should approve it. For instance, January 20th, we're going to have over 1,000 youth in the San Angelo area volunteering. And one of the projects that we're going to be taking care of is going to be cleanup on the river, as well as the lake, as well as building a wall, raising a wall at a battered women's shelter, and as well as we're working on building a restroom over at Martin Luther King Park. Home Depot is in with us on that. So, I mean, you're talking about sponsors, you're talking about getting support, for the Riverfest. I can clearly see it, and I think the people that I talk to going forward will be able to see the same things that I'm able to show them, how this Riverfest can not only, impact, the San Angelo area, but it can help us thrive. So.
Thank you, sir, and welcome to San Angelo.
Glad to be here.
Is there any other comments from the public on this matter, for or against? Yes, sir, please come forward.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Alex Vega, and I met Carl in the month of July. I've noticed that the river was beautiful. I was walking the river one morning with my kiddos and noticed there was a washer pit location there, and I approached Carl and wanted to host the event. I took lead of the washer pitching event. My family and I have been hosting events for the past 10 years in College Station, and wanted to bring our event to San Angelo. So I partnered with Carl and wanted to be a part of the San Angelo River Fest. And the event that we hosted there at the Washer Pitching Tournament was a huge success. We had participants and players from all across Texas come to play at our event. Well over 70 teams from, again, all across Texas, and even people from out of state to want to be a part of this event. We've pitched the event as the West Texas State Championship event, and we had great sponsors, work with me and others, and I would say alone in that small little area, we probably had anywhere from 700 to close to 1,000 people just within that washer pitching area. So it was a huge success for us. We can't wait to do it again if this is approved. Again, I've been hosting them for the past 10 years in College Station. This is the first year that I wanted to host it here in San Angelo. And again, it was a huge success. So hopefully this motion gets approved and, we could do this event again.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Charlamagne.
Yes.
I just wanted to express my gratitude really to Carl and his staff, all the sponsors for this event. I definitely don't want to send the message out there that, I know that, yes, we did have a shortfall of $7,500. But when you look at the whole picture, and I want to relay a very short story. I know my son and I were out there, we really enjoyed the event. I had a friend actually that came down here that hadn't been here for years. He graduated from Angelo State University, brought his wife and his daughters down here. He enjoyed the event so much, was so impressed with what had happened in the river area. His wife was talking about moving to San Angelo now. They were very impressed. I know that a lot of people that I talked to also really enjoyed the festival. When you look at it, it is a morale booster for our community. It also brings in people to the community to enjoy what we have on the river, what the work has been done, but also to visit the downtown area. A lot of people that live in our community haven't seen what's developed in the downtown area and the river area also. And that brings individuals back to revisit and hopefully come back again. I know that we'll do everything we possibly can. I know Carl will do and his staff will do everything they possibly can to make sure that we do hit a break even. But as Rick also mentioned, we have to be careful not to hold that over their heads. They're going to try their absolute best. I think the best scenario for us would be also to start building up some type of a fund balance for future events, and that's something that we definitely will move forward with. But again, I do want to make sure that I express our gratitude again to Carl, his staff, all the sponsors who helped make this a success, and our appreciation for that. Thank you.
Okay, my turn for my comment. I would like to sum up what I believe the council has said here today. And first of all, one of the things that makes San Angelo great is if you've got a conservative council who watches those tax dollars. It's your money that we're spending out there. And this is our way of letting you know we care. I think every council member up here thinks the event and still thinks the event is great for San Angelo and it's great for our tourism. And we want to see that happen. But we have to be prudent with your tax dollars. There's no other answer for that. Then I would like to say, Carl, everything in my 8 years on this council that I have seen you deal with has been a success. I say it at every meeting that I'm at and even out there in the public. You do an outstanding job. You love parks and recreation. You love recreation for the family and for the enrichment that it brings to families. And San Angelo is lucky to have that. The city of San Angelo is very lucky to have you doing these kind of projects. But nobody said that you have to be perfect at raising money. That doesn't have anything to do with recreation. So my suggestion would be, from what you've gathered today, we love what you're doing, but get someone on your committee who is an ace at raising money and sponsorships. There are a lot of large companies here that would love to be under contract to do a 3, maybe 5-year sponsorship on something like that. And that way you're more comfortable to do what you do best, and that is recreation and promoting recreation for the family and for San Angelo. So that's what I heard up here today. You may have heard the negative because it wasn't all positive, but we have a job to do, and that is to watch that tax dollar. And that's my comment, and if there is no other comment on that, I will call for the vote.
I've got one quick one.
Okay. Yes, sir,
Real
Mr.
short.
Silvas.
Carl, and I would urge you to tap into the Alex Vegas out there and then the gentleman with Yaz, because not only is Yaz out at the ASU, we all know there's hundreds of other organizations that love this city and will welcome to be a part of it. So I encourage you, and I thank you guys for being a part and making this a positive event. So, just run with it.
I agree. We want this to be a community event.
And one other suggestion, since you stood up, and I'll say it, I think if you get with Anthony out there and see if you can pry some advertising dollars out of his hands, if you will just agree to make a TV commercial, use the one you already have where you're coming down the diving board at the swimming pool with no water, and if you just yell on the screen, you'll later somebody put on there, "Come to Riverfest." When it's time to start advertising that, if you could win first place for the whole state of
Don't do
Texas
it.
for that spot, do it, and
Don't
it'll
do it.
work. It will work. All right. Is there any other comments?
Again, please.
Do what?
State the motion again.
The motion again, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Wardlaw, was to approve the event. Say it again, please. Exact. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
I move to approve the Riverfest for the year 2014 without any funding from the City of San Angelo budget.
And bring it back for review in June.
Well, he can't wait till June, I don't think.
Do what?
I don't think Carl can wait till June.
No, to bring his money progress back in June.
We can give you
just
an
to
update in
report.
June.
An update is all I'm asking for, so we don't let it slide. And that was the motion, and Mr. Vardaman, I believe you had made the second.
Excuse me, Ms. Farmer, since Mr. Wardlaw made the motion, do you want to add that to your motion to
What?
bring back the
No.
item in
No.
June?
No, I do not.
That's just to bring back in June. I want to make sure that they do that. That's just my comments.
I call for a vote.
I need the second. It was
Don
restated. You restated
seconded.
second. Mr. Vardaman did. All right, call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed indicate by saying nay.
Nay.
We have 1 nay and 5 ayes. Motion carries. Thank you, Carl. Anytime you want to be beat up on, just come up to us.
I appreciate
I'd like to call for about a 10-minute break at this point, if I may, please. It is 10:47. We are calling the meeting back to order. We just completed item number 6, and we'll move on now to item number 7 on our agenda. It's discussion and consideration of authorizing staff to negotiate changes to the Underwater Football LLC, DBA, the San Angelo Bandits lease agreement. Our presentation today is by Civic Events Manager Angela. It's not Angelica, it's Angelica.
Angelica.
Pena, thank you.
H.
I was going to say that, and I just messed it up, but
Okay, you're fine.
please proceed.
Good morning, council. The item that I'm bringing to you today is consideration of whether or not the council is agreeable to making negotiations or making changes to the agreement that we have currently with the San Angelo Bandits. Now, as you will recall, almost a year ago today, we approved their 3-year lease agreement that covered 2013, 2014, and 2015. It covered the rental fees, scheduling use program. It was a pretty lengthy agreement, and council unanimously passed that back in January 8th. After this first inaugural season that the Bandits had, they did have a loss overall throughout the season of about $138,000. So we regrouped after the season and tried to see if there was any ways that the city could potentially help or assist them to continue having their football team here, but also not losing so much money on their end. So that's what we are bringing to you today. That's just some brief background info. The requested changes that the Bandits have asked for is to reduce the rent to $750 a game, and that's down about $1,000, because if you recall, the agreement that we approved last year, it's $1,750 per game. They want to not have any fees charged for practice, which we currently charge them $50 each time they do have a practice. They have asked that we remove the requirement that 2,000 people must be in attendance before we actually share in concession proceeds. That is how it's worded in our current agreement. They must have at least 2,000 people, whether it's a paid or comp, before they can receive a discount in their rent by way of concessions percentage. They have also asked that the city consider waiving percentage of our concession sales for 2 games so that they are able to run promotions. They did a promotion this past year in their May game, and it actually worked out well. They worked with Carlo, the San Angelo host, to offer a discounted hot dog, discounted beer, and their attendance did go up. So it proves that whenever they work with the vendor, there are, and it actually provides some type of incentive food-wise, that they do have a better attendance. So they're asking for the city to not charge that for 2 games so that they can run those promotions. The last change that they're asking in the agreement, they cannot alter the building in any way, and they're asking that the locker room be painted. They want to paint it their home team colors, because as it stands, I believe it's Stampede colors, which is maroon and yellow, and they are black and green, so it kind of clashes.
Bandits colors.
Bandits colors. Okay. It's painted in a...
Yeah, I know. I thought you said Stampede colors.
It was Stampede colors currently. So, just to give you an overall snapshot of our 2013 season, the city took in revenue of about $19,000. The expenses that we had throughout, including labor and things of that nature, were $7,072. One thing to note, that of the $19,000 that was revenue, approximately $5,000 were from concession sales. So we took, after all of our expenses, about $12,200. City did. If we look at what the Bandits are requesting, that would potentially, it would give us about a 79% decrease in revenue from last year. That's $6,000 lost in the rent revenue, $1,320 for concession, $1,840 if we gave up concessions for 2 games. That means that the city would not receive any concession money at that point, and $450 lost in practice revenue. This item was taken to the Civic Events Board back in late October, and they heard, Mr. Sanders came up and gave his presentation, and were agreeable for the city to kind of give some type of help, that they understand that it's valuable to have the Bandits. It's an entertainment opportunity for the citizens of San Angelo. So they considered the request and approved the following. Instead of the $750, which is what the Bandits requested as their new rent, they approved $1,000. They recommended removing the attendance requirement and just allowing the Bandits to share in concession proceeds, whether they don't want to meet that $2,000 agreement. In order to do that, we should just share the concession proceeds off the top without having an attendance requirement. They were okay with not charging for practice, and were agreeable in allowing the 2 games in which concession promos do take place. So the city would not benefit in concessions, but neither would the Bandits. And they also agreed to allow the team to paint the locker room. With the $12,200 that the city took in this past year, if we ran the numbers with CEB's recommendation, and that came out to about an $8,000 loss. So that still gives us $4,113 for the year, which is still 66% decrease over what we received in revenue last year. What we're looking for as staff is just direction from council. If you would like for us to proceed in negotiations, or if you wanted to make a hybrid, maybe look at what CEB recommended and what the Bandits are asking for. We are open to, working with the team. We'd like to keep them here. It's great entertainment for the city of San Angelo. So we're open to whatever staff is willing to consider.
Okay, to refresh new council members that possibly don't know some history, I do know that the council in the past, when our concessionaire first came here and took over concessions, and has run things quite successfully since then, but his first startup year wasn't as great as he had anticipated or hoped that it would be. And he approached the council, and the council was more than happy, as long as we weren't subsidizing, to work with him and readjust his contract. So this is not, something new that we have not done. I will state before I open it up here that, I know the city is not in the business to lose money. We're not supposed to make money, but I do like breaking even. But we still, if we look at a temporary reduction, we're still doing more than breaking even. So I would like to open it up to council comment at this time. Mr. Wardlaw?
I have a question and several comments. Tell me how you calculated the loss of rental revenue. You're losing $1,000 a game?
Correct. If we did the $750 rental, which is what the Bandits are requesting, currently it's $1,750, so that's $1,000 each game, and they have a 6-game season.
So I saw
the $4,500 is if this is the CEB board's recommendation. They recommended not taking it to $750, only charging $1,000 a game. So then that's still $750 less than what they're being charged now.
Okay, I'm going to come at this at a little different angle than probably the other council members, and I'm going to bring in Mr. Dane and Rick on this. I was on the council back about 10, 12 years ago whenever the pro hockey group was here, and we got into all kinds of terrible problems with respect to that, litigation, legal fees, hundreds of thousands of dollars lost to the city and the citizens of San Angelo. And the primary reason that happened was because the city of San Angelo negligently contracted with a shell corporation, a corporation which had very little in the way of assets and was unable to fulfill their duties and responsibilities under the contract. And the problem that you have when that happens is that the contract is basically unenforceable, because if it's a shell, nothing can happen bad to them, and they just can say, well, we want A, B, C, and D, which we're already starting into, or we're going to walk during the term of the contract. And I see a rerun of this happening right away, and I'd like some comment, and I want to get into the financial responsibility. Are you familiar with this Underwater Football LLC?
Yes, that's the San Angelo Bandits, and we've worked with them this first year.
And what does the Underwater Football stand for? Is that a financial reference, or is that reference to the sport?
I'd have to defer to the owner, Randy Sanders, on that.
Have you looked? Well, wait a minute. Has the city of San Angelo looked at their financial statement?
No.
All right. Well, if they're a shell legal entity, LLC means limited liability company, does it not?
Yes.
Under the state of Texas. So whatever's in that company is all we have to look for, or to seek performance under the contract. Would you agree with that?
I suppose this is something that I'm not too familiar with as far as limited liability corporations.
Well, we all know, and you can read in the magazines and the books, that most of these sports franchises fail. And they fail because they're unprofitable. And looking at this, $138,000 or so lost in the first year. And at some point in time, if this thing doesn't turn around, obviously the person is going to stop feeding the company and taking the loss. Nobody operates a business over a long period of time when they're taking huge losses. And the way these things work is the people that have these sports entities, a lot of them set up these shell legal entities so that they're protected just like a corporate shareholder, is to where if the thing goes bankrupt, then they can walk away from it. And I'm for football, and I'm for this undertaking, but I'm not for this undertaking if we don't make sure that we have financial responsibility. And I don't even know who the owner is, but I don't believe he is on the dotted line in this contract. And what a lot of people don't know and need to understand is that when somebody walks away from this thing, he can either walk away and just say, well, you can have the assets of the LLC, which are little or nothing, which is what happened to the city of San Angelo last time, or they can declare bankruptcy, and then you can't collect anything from them, and you run into all these legal fees like we had. And I know Michael Dane remembers this well, because he is, and probably Rick too, because we were all in this, and we had legal proceedings with the pro hockey people on a daily basis, and half our meetings we spent trying to figure out how to protect the citizens of San Angelo from these hundreds of thousands of dollars of expenses that we incurred, legal fees and other expenses when they walked away from the thing. And there was litigation, and I was involved in that litigation, and I helped the city on that litigation. And I met when we had arbitration and mediation proceedings, and the city of San Angelo was brutalized, and I don't want to see a rerun of that. And there are unintended consequences also that people need to understand. One of them is that it's disruptive. If they decide to walk, it can be disruptive, and it was with pro hockey in handling other events, because you're trying to decide whether or not these people are going to show up and they're going to use it or not. And I'll tell you, it's a problem. And I'll tell you another problem, a collateral problem that came up, is that these other people, the pro hockey people, when they decided that they weren't going to feed this shell corporation anymore, they quit paying all of the good people, the citizens of San Angelo, who were suppliers and vendors and other people, and they left owing a lot of money. And I think they felt like that if the city of San Angelo was going to sponsor and do business with this company, that they were going to be financially responsible. And while maybe that was a misplaced sense of emphasis, I think we have some duty to protect the people. And I don't want to change anything. I'm willing to talk about it, but I think in consideration, therefore, we need to get some financial responsibility with respect to the person we're contracting with. And you know, people can tell me here today, but I suspect we don't have any financial responsibility on the part of the people we're doing business with.
I just would like to mention something very quickly. Is Mr. Sanders, who is the owner of the Bandits, does have a lot of experience running football teams. He owns 2 other teams in 2 other cities, and they do perform well. So going on his track record is why we took this to council last year and approved the contract that we currently have in place.
If he continues to lose $138,000 a year, he's not going to be here a whole lot longer, and he does not have to come out of his pocket with any money. He comes out of his pocket with money whenever he wants to, but when the nosebleed gets bad enough, he's going to walk away. And that's just a history all over the United States of these sports franchises. You can read about them in the Wall Street Journal. You can read about them in magazines. They don't make money, and there's some sort of psychic income in owning a sports franchise, which I don't have a problem with. But our duty is to protect the citizens of the city of San Angelo.
Okay. Mr. Vardaman, you have any comments that you would like to make? We're talking about football, and of course not hockey, but what Mr. Wardlaw said is all true. That was on hockey, so do you have questions?
I guess kind of pertaining to Winky's questions, do we have any actual outlay as far as the city goes for this team?
I'm sorry, when you say outlay, what do you?
Monetary outlay. I know with the hockey team we had to improve the Coliseum and do a lot of
No,
those
they're just like a regular tenant. We put together the field for them, and we do the bumpers, and they rent the Coliseum for the purpose of having their football game within the Lone Star League.
Do we furnish the turf or any?
No, that belongs to the owner.
Okay.
And that's the big change that council made from when the hockey days were in place. Back then, there was a partnership per se. The city put in a huge investment that Don's referring to as far as the ice plant and so forth. In this case, council took a departure from that and went to leading staff to doing simply rentals with the goal of making sure that we break even. So that's where we ended up with last year's proposal, because we were putting all those costs, whatever it is. If they're setting up the turf, then she has an expense for that. And what does that cost in making sure that the city breaks even? You do have the exposure that she blocks a certain number of days for their events. And if they were to walk, then yes, those days weren't pre-booked, and you could lose revenue that way.
Okay.
So they give you dates that you block, for them.
Correct.
And we're guaranteed an income of, whatever the attendance is on those dates. They're not a call in each month and say, I'd like to book a day next month or whatever. It's in advance.
Yeah, we get that schedule pretty much the year before.
Any other questions, Mr. Vardaman?
No, ma'am.
Over here, Mr.
yes.
Fleming?
On the civic events boards, they came up with the recommendations that we're looking at here. The question I have, I'm not sure if I'm quite understanding this or not, but the 2 dates where the concession sales, what their recommendation was is we don't take a profit and the football team doesn't take a profit, and so the concessionaire is basically doing it for cost. Is that correct?
That is correct. In that case, because we do have a agreement with San Angelo Host in which the city provides 20% of food, we get 25% of alcohol. For 2 games, we don't receive that percentage so that the concessionaire can sell things at cost.
Okay.
So you're correct.
Okay. And they had several meetings on this about what they thought was best for this situation. I mean, looking at what they're saying is, this is kind of a little different than what we had before we took our break. We're actually not going to lose money according to what they're saying. We're going to actually still make some money. The only thing I would have a problem with it, the practices they're saying free on the practices, but it actually does cost us money to run the power and.
What we ask for in the contract is that we only turn on lights. We don't do HVAC. We don't do the heat. But this, really, for this upcoming year, is almost a non-issue. There's a lot of events that we have in the Coliseum, and it's going to be hard to find practice for the Bandits in the Coliseum.
It is.
This coming year, correct.
Okay.
So they're going to have to opt to practice outside, which is what they normally do. They don't use the Coliseum very much to practice.
Okay. Well, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the Civic Events Board, what they had put forward to us.
I'll second that.
Have a motion from Mr. Fleming to accept the CEB recommendation and a second from Mr. Silvas. Is there further comment from the rest?
Yes.
Excuse me, Ms. Farmer, the caption is authorize the staff to negotiate changes. Once they negotiate the changes, then they'll bring the contract back for approval.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we do agree to negotiate that.
Accept the recommendations and
Of the
renegotiate.
Civic Events Board.
Of the Civic Events Board.
That's what I want, is that
Okay.
I don't want to go, I want to, I think that's a meet in the middle. That's what they want. It's between what they want and what we have. That's my
Mr.
motion.
Silvas, is that your second as well?
Yes, I'll second
Okay,
that.
second is made. Is there any further comment from council? Mr. Self?
No.
Mr. Silvas?
I do. With all due respect to Winky, I think we're talking about 2 different animals here. I mean, what happened back in the hockey days was, it was a fiasco from what little I remember, but I totally agree with you on that. I do. I think if you look at even the game of hockey in West Texas, it just doesn't gel well, if I'm using the correct words, but.
Doesn't freeze well.
It doesn't freeze well, okay. But football is a totally different game, and if you're bringing me $4,000 for my end of it as a profit, then that's $4,000 we don't have, And I think Mr. Sanders is looking for some type of support, and this meeting being televised, I would urge the public, hey, come out there and support this game. $138,000 is his loss, not the city's. It's not my loss. It's not our loss, our taxpayer money. But if we want this idea of football, arena football to continue, it's going to be up to the citizens. It's going to be up to them promoting it. So, again, if you're bringing me $4,000, my God, what's wrong with that? That's $4,000 I don't have in the bank anyway. And just give them a chance. I too had the question about the 2-game concessions, but you cleared it away. They have a total of 6 games during the whole season.
They have the option of having 7 scheduled and then a preseason, but the season's already set and there will only be 6 this past year, and there are only going to be 6 this next coming year.
Home games.
Home games. They have out-of-town games. They play in other cities.
So a
These are
total of
just
how many
6 here.
games?
For the season, it's probably about 12 to 13 games.
Okay, that's what I counted on the. But anyway, I just want to say, give this. If we're in the negative, then I do have a problem with it. But if again, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, I say wasn't last year the first year that they the first year of
That we
the
had
3-year contract.
indoor football back, yes.
Yeah. So I think again, it's no different than the Riverfest trying to build up steam. I think he's trying, they're trying. So, and I take it that the locker room paint job will come out of their pocket. So
we also would put in there that they paint it back to a suitable color that we would
Right.
want after they vacate the Coliseum.
So again, I have no problem with it. If this is a seed for them to move forward, then I'm okay with it.
Okay, from where I sit, Mr. Wardlaw is exactly right. We took a huge beating in hockey. And the difference being is the disagreement or understanding of the electricity cost to run the ice plant and maintain the ice. And that became very expensive, and the city was not willing to subsidize those costs. And I do know that in the contract, we have a clause where they pay for a kilowatt hour of usage for whenever they are using the facility. So that's how we took care of that item. And Mr. Silvas is right. This is football. It's not hockey. And hockey in this part of the country is hard to understand or people to relate to. But they do love football. I love football. I love the arena games. I go to all the games here. And I even play fantasy football. I love football. And that's the product of being a wife, and either you learn to like the game and understand it, or ironed or something, or cleaned all up during the football games. So it is a portion of entertainment. It does fill our Coliseum on days, with people that, and it's most of the time where we don't have things booked at the Coliseum. And this is good also, and it's just another form of entertainment. I also will approve, the negotiations, but my main concern is I want to make sure in these negotiations that our concessionaire is in agreement with this, because we have a contract with him, and I certainly don't want to disturb that. And he took over out there, and he also lost a year in between the football owners. We were down a year, weren't we, or something like that?
We
So
haven't had football for 3 years.
3 years,
Mhm.
okay. So he lost, in revenue there. So I want to make certain that that's taken into consideration during these negotiations.
And Carlo was here earlier. He's actually still
Is there
he was in
any further
agreement with
comments
that.
from the council?
I have one last one.
Okay, Mr. Wardlaw?
Yeah, I'd just like to make one or two clarifications. I'm not against, as I said at the first of my statement, I'm not against this contract. I'm not against the football being played here. I am a football fan myself. But my point I was trying to make is, if we're going to give him these concessions, why wouldn't we want to make him guarantee the payment of the rent? You guys are assuming that he's going to pay the rent. If it keeps losing $130,000 at some point, he's going to walk, guys. And it may be at the end of the contract. It may be during the middle of the contract. And you're not going to get the money, and you're not going to make the profit. If he's not willing to guarantee the rent, this small amount of rent, he's losing $135,000, $138,000 a year. When that's more than the hockey people were losing, and they bailed out. Why wouldn't we make him guarantee the rent? I mean, it's a quid pro quo kind of thing. If he's not willing to guarantee $6,000 or so rent a year to cover our expenses, why would we want to have him? Why would we want to do business with him? Why would we want to give him concessions? That's just not the way it works in the private sector, folks. Dealing with your own money, you protect yourself every way you know how.
Okay, Mr. Silvas?
No, my last question was, and I'll follow up on Winky's question, is also, I don't think him defaulting on the rent, or the bandits defaulting on the rent, is going to bankrupt the city. I totally agree. Yeah, we signed a contract. We would hope that the rent comes in. But if he goes away, if it just falls through the cracks, I don't think we won't be in a world of hurt.
It would be easy or I would say it wouldn't be too difficult to fill the dates with other events. $17.50 is a standard rent that we charge for the Coliseum. If somebody else is going to come in and rent for that day that the Bandits wouldn't be there, I don't anticipate having a problem filling it.
Secondly, I'm looking at the Bandit season actual. Can you give me an average of the attendance? I mean, we talked about a 2,000 person attendance, but there is no attendance on these games.
Well, the average was about 1,100. The best attended game was 1,200 people.
Wow.
It just kind of fluctuated. There's some days where we couldn't get the people out there, so it's a hit or miss at times.
And the promoting of the games, or the advertising, it's
Mr.
strong
Sanders,
and ongoing.
He has advertising. He advertises on the radio, TV. He has printed ads. He has his box office. He does a lot of work. And we, as a city, assist in that. We post it on our Facebook page as well as our homepage, coastatx.us, all of the upcoming games, and we kind of let people know there's activity going on out there. Everyone, go to the game.
So about 1,100 is the average.
Okay. About that.
Okay.
All
right.
One more thing, Charlotte.
Yes.
How do we? I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Fleming.
how do we get paid on the rents? Is it for each game, or is it the end of the season, or?
No, within 2 weeks of the game, we do what's called a settlement, and we
Okay.
actually collect the rent at that point. as
Before
well
the
as
game?
After the game, after we have all the ticket counts, because we make sure that we have all the money accounted for. We also get a facility fee off each ticket, so we calculate that, we have a settlement, and then we get paid.
So we wouldn't be going the whole season without it. I'm
No.
trying to answer your fear, Winky, that we could be on the line for basically $6,000.
We do it on a per game basis after each game.
Well, you could be on the line basically for 2 games. How far apart are these games? They're 2 weeks, every 2 weeks? So it'd be rough on there, but
Well, sometimes they're every 2 days. It just depends on the schedule that they get. I've seen the settlement sheets, and working on the Civic Events Board when the hockey was going, I've seen those settlement sheets. It took longer to get the settlement sheets back in the hockey days, and we could be out there, but I've seen the previous owner's settlement sheets of the football and the current owner, and to my knowledge, neither team had been slow pay in their rent at all. It was paid as received.
so I think, I hope that helps you, Winky, a little bit, where we can, all these corporations, everybody can figure out a way to get out of anything, but I think if we don't get stuck on the line for the whole amount, I'm with Johnny where we need to have things going on out there, so trying to get some activity out there is only going to help us. We've got a giant building, we need it to be full as much as possible, or get as many people as we can.
Before I turn this over to public comment, I want to add one thing, and I thought of it back on Carl's deal. Whenever a presentation is presented to us, years ago, we used to receive, in that line of budget of expense and revenue, we used to receive what was called a expected revenue of economic impact. Do you remember that? Yeah. And that would tell us the economic impact, those out-of-town teams, heads in beds, number from out-of-town fans, because they have to have tickets as well. So we have a rough estimate. And I would like to see us to go back to at least showing what that estimated economic impact is going to be, because it's not just the dollars for the city of San Angelo. There's hotels and motels and restaurants and shopping, and usually you can go backwards and look at the tax revenues for that particular weekend and see what the increase was. So it wouldn't be too terribly hard to estimate the estimated economic impact for council. Would be nice on both items.
I can do that.
Okay. Is there any comment out there from the public? Yes, please come forward and state your name, Ms. Jones.
Charlotte, while she's coming up, Angelica, what is the ticket FF? What does that say?
That's facility fee.
Facility fee.
That's the fee that we get off of each ticket that is sold to maintain the Coliseum.
Please state your name.
I am Darlene Jones, and I'm here representing the Lone Star Football League. I am the commissioner for the state of Texas and New Mexico. So, Mr. Wardlaw, I want to answer one of your questions. When you join the Lone Star Football, you have to excuse my voice today, but when you join the Lone Star Football League, we have to look at financials. We have to examine financials, and they have to put up a major letter of credit. And I can assure you that underwater football is very well okay. They're not going to leave San Angelo with $6,000, I assure you.
They're not underwater. He has a sense of humor.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, exactly.
No, they're above water.
And the letter of credit that they put up would pay the rent 10 times full. So the Lone Star Football League is very stable. We have very few teams. We only have 5 teams, but that is because we only pick stability. I can speak from experience in San Angelo. I had my team here for 7 years, and I lived in the nightmare of hockey. And all I ever heard was San Angelo won't subsidize because of hockey. And in 7 years, and I have a whole lot shallower pockets than Mr. Sanders, y'all never once subsidized 1 penny. But all he's asking is for a break and make it happen so he can stay here. And I do know he can run away, but he has also invested in downtown San Angelo. He has opened up a restaurant downtown, and he's bought a house here, so he is very well invested, so he's not going to leave. Plus, this is my home, and I assure you the Lone Star Football League is not going to screw San Angelo.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for Ms. Jones? Okay. Any other comments? Please come forward and state your name. And I know we met back there, but please state your name for the record.
I'm Tim White. I'm the president of the Bandits. And I want to kind of speak to what we've noticed in going out, because my concern when Randy came in, and I was a VIP ticket holder last year and got to enjoy the football. But I told him I would help him this year in getting the businesses of San Angelo to buy into professional sports. I also own a toy company that deals with the NFL and PGA, and so I understand professional sports and how businesses need to buy into those, as well as the partnerships of the fan base. And so when I came on to partner with Randy, and I've owned a business here in town, an Allstate agency, but the thing that I wanted to do was to get businesses to partner with Randy, and to see that professional sports is a place for not only the fans, but for businesses to show their product. And so we've done that, and then this year we have increased corporate sponsorship, and we've also increased our participation out on the base. I'm a retired military guy, retired here 15 years ago. And so I still have a lot of contacts out on the base. And so one of the things that we didn't get to benefit from last year was a great participation from the base, because there was a lockdown by the commander. And so we lost a lot of revenue and a lot of participation in those seats, which would have helped us in revenue last year, because we had a lockdown out on the base. And so we have addressed those things, and we're currently addressing those with the base now with some great programs to get those guys out to the Coliseum. And it's difficult. Transportation's tough to get guys out to from the base to the Coliseum. And we've addressed some of those. Mr. Sanders actually purchased a bus for the purpose of bringing members from the military out to the Coliseum. So his investment in this has been substantial. His commitment to San Angelo has been impressive from my standpoint, and we've seen a lot of businesses jump on board with us. Cytel has sponsored the field, of course Anheuser-Busch, and we've just got from insurance agencies to local, everything from printers and everybody else. They really want this team to succeed. And I think the city council should help us do that, so that we can have professional sports and grow that part of the industry here in San Angelo. Thanks.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. Is there any other comment out there from the public? As he's working his way up here, I would like to mention that impressed that he's ahead of the game with purchasing a bus. I serve on the COG board, and the new routes were just established, and I objected very strongly that there are no routes from the base to the Coliseum. And that's something I know that Rick and I had talked about at the Pentagon one year with them, is having transportation for those gentlemen. So I'm happy to hear that. I'm sorry you had to burden that expense. Please state your name for the council.
My name is Randy Sanders. I'm the owner of the San Angelo Bandits. I also own a bus business. I also own an antibacterial business. I bought a house in San Angelo. I'm one of your citizens, so I'm not running away. I personally think you should look into who is in your community before you take and assault them. Number one, I came here, I like San Angelo. I'm retired. I don't have to be here. Okay? Darlene Jones introduced me to this, and I appreciate it. And I thank you for being part of it and listening to what we're trying to do here. Okay? I've owned 2 hockey teams, been successful at both of them. The Austin Ice Bats, the Amarillo Gorillas. I've sold both teams. So there are people out there who want to be known as a professional team owner and probably beat their chest about it, and they lose their shirt, yes. I'm a businessman, have been that way for 30 years. All I'm asking you guys to do is listen to what I said when I came into this town. I negotiated this deal with Carl. I told him at that time this was not a good deal. I felt like that he reassured me that he couldn't get it through council because of past history and things like that. And so I said, I will live with it. And I will take my losses because I know I'm going to lose the first year. And I did. And I'm not complaining one bit. That number up there was not approved by me, for you to know. Okay? So all I'm saying here is give us a chance to do this. We're on the right track. The only way we're going to do it is with your support sitting at that desk. And you telling your people out there that this is their home team. Because we bring people in there and entertain you. And we have 6 opportunities to pay all our bills. So please, do not judge us from your past history.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Sanders?
I do want to make a quick comment.
Okay.
I know that with any sports team, and this was your first year, you're not going to build a community support immediately for that team. It's something that you build upon on a year-by-year basis. I was very fortunate to attend one of your events, and my sons and I really enjoyed it. The thing is that even my son now one day was telling me he wanted a banded shirt, and that's just from attending one event. So that is something that you build upon, and I know this first year was a trying year for you. We do thank you for still investing in our community moving forward, but we wish you the best. I think that, again, this is your first year, your building year, and again, you don't gain popular overnight. It's going to take a little while.
No, and we were aware of that. We planned on losing money. I've been doing this for 10 years. Okay. Like I said, I own other teams and other things like that. I try to know what I'm doing. Let's put it that way. San Angelo, in my opinion, is a great opportunity. It's a nice West Texas town. It's a nice place to live. I own a house on Austin Avenue now. I own Concho's downtown, which I hope some of you have eaten there. And I'm bringing my businesses to this town. So please don't, like I said, it just bothers me that your bad experience with a hockey team, and I happen to know those owners of that hockey team, and I knew the situation because I was in Austin when it happened. I feel sorry for you. But we haven't done that here. And by the way, they do require that I provide financials before I sign a contract in your city. So.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders.
Thank you very much.
I was a hockey fan along with my husband, and we were season ticket holders and loved it. And then was a season ticket holder every year that the Stampede was here.
And we appreciate you being the band.
And I've been a season ticket holder, my family and I, with you, and I love the games. But I do appreciate the clean games that you and Miss Jones run. I can tell the crowd that I sit right behind the players, the bench. And their tempers can unleash some language that you don't want to take your children to, but that's not allowed in San Angelo. And the opposing teams find that out real quick. You run a tight ship, and for one as a fan, that I appreciate because I've always brought my grandchildren. So thank you. Any other questions?
Yes.
Yes,
Mr. Sanders, I just wanted to add that, you like us have to grow thick skin sometimes, because we are elected to sometimes ask the hard questions.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, I think what you are onto is awesome, and I think that you've got a big fan base that is growing. Like the manager said, it's going to take time, but it will grow. But you just got to take the punches that come your way and just move on. And
understand.
I applaud you and your efforts, and if it goes through, great.
That's exactly.
But thank you and Darlene for what you're trying to do.
And our intention is to our next goal is to take and bring a professional soccer team here.
There you
Indoor
go.
soccer team. So we're looking at it's not a short-term thing. Okay. So understand, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Any other public comment? There being none, I'll call for the vote. The motion was to accept the CEB's recommendation to negotiate the terms as they provided. The second was made by Mr. Silvas. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed indicate by saying nay.
Nay.
Okay, we have 5 ayes and 1 nay. Motion carries.
We'll work on the renegotiations for the contract and bring that back to council once it's in the agreement. So we'll
Thank you.
come back to you for final approval.
Thank you.
Angelica,
Yes, sir.
just out of curiosity, can we still freeze the floor at the Coliseum?
The ice plant is down. We have it, but it's not in operation. So, no.
It's too cold outside, Don.
too cold.
Wait,
I was thinking with Carl, we could have frozen bull riding, out there and really make something different.
He's already turning red. He must be thinking about it.
You talking about in his goggles and shorts?
Yes.
My goodness.
I would do it. The plant still exists, but we do have issues with the compressors.
Okay.
Okay. Moving on, the next item, if council will permit, I'd like to jump to number 9. Consideration of, computer just went off. Consideration of confirming the Civil Service Commission nominee Teresa Special by City Manager and approval of same by City Council.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion to approve by Mr. Silvas and a second by Mr. Fleming to approve nominee Ms. Teresa Special to the Civil Service Commission. Is there any comment by council? Any public comment on this matter? Being none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries 6-0. All right, and it is 11:31. We can discuss future agenda items right quick and then break for executive. It's y'all's pleasure. Or if you want to go ahead and break for executive. I'm sorry, John.
I say executive.
Executive, okay. At this time, we will break for executive session. I will read executive session off, and any decisions on executive, I believe, are made in executive.
If we have a,
Let me
We have
get
to actually
to
go
the,
into it. I think we have to actually go into executive and come back and say
Yes,
if I
sir.
asked something to be taken off.
the executive session reads, my paper's faster than the computer, but I trust the computer. Executive session under the provision of Government Code Title 5, Open Government Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government, Chapter 551, Open Meetings, Subchapter D, exceptions to requirement that meetings be open under the following sections. Section 551.071, 2, to consult with its attorney on a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with this chapter regarding quarterly invoices dated 12/9/2013 for services rendered pursuant to the interlocal agreement between cities of Abilene, Midland, and San Angelo, effective 4/9/2011, West Texas Water Partnership, and subject to confidentiality under said interlocal agreement. Section 551.072, to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property regarding West Texas Partnership and Lake Nasworthy. Section 552.071.1 and Section 551.072, to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property regarding the West Texas Christian Foundation property, a.k.a. Christian Village, on Loop 306, Access Road, and to consult with an attorney concerning contemplated litigation in connection with such property. It is 11:38 a.m. at the January 7, 2014 council meeting. We are in executive. It is 12:38. We are reconvening from executive session back into open session. We have nothing to discuss from executive session today. So we will move on to our last item that was on there, and it is future agenda items. Future agenda items, I'll start here to my right. Mr. Wardlaw? None for today. None for today. Mr. Vardaman?
We discussed last meeting about a night meeting with 3 items on there. I was just going to kind of see what the status of that was.
We're working on that.
The check's in the mail?
Check.
Okay.
Don, we are.
Adams again, Don.
And, go ahead.
The sales tax and distribution of it and stormwater and,
And the workshop for the budget prep we were going to have in January.
capital
Workshop.
outlay.
So, any idea when that workshop date is yet, Mr. Valenzuela?
We have the workshop that we talked about was the
the grouping between the different entities, the county, the school district, so that's planned on the 28th, 29th, is it? On the 28th? So that's correct. And we'll have a preliminary meeting next week with those entities, to make sure that we establish a good agenda for what we're going to discuss.
Mr. Fleming?
Nothing at this time.
Nothing at this time.
I'm just wondering when we're going to replace and I assume the monies are there, that marquee out here in the front? That ugly
Mr. Anthony
looking marquee.
Wilson. Anthony's not here.
That would be, Angelo would help us with that.
Anyway, I just wondered, I know the monies have been approved, I just wondered when it's
Well, could
going
we
out.
entertain to move a motion on the rest of our day? Mr. Wardlaw? Could I entertain a motion for the rest of our day to adjourn?
I'm having a lot of fun. Let's just stay here for a while.
No. My new great-grandbaby boy is in town from Utah at 2:33 this morning, and I want to go home and
Move we adjourn.
move for adjourn. Second? Somebody?
Second.
We are adjourned. It is 12:41. Dwayne would be proud.